Welcome back to the Strength and Speed Podcast. I'm your host, Conquer the Gauntlet Pro, Evan Preparis. Not joining me is Brenna Calvert, but I do have another guest on the line. Before we get to that, though, we're going to do a quick word from our sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by Health IQ. Health IQ uses science and data to secure lower rates on life insurance for health-conscious people. So if you're a runner, a cyclist, a strength trainer, or an OCR athlete, like you probably are since you're listening to this podcast, and you don't have life insurance, I would hit up Health IQ because they offer discounts for being healthy. What you need to do is you need to head over to their website, healthiq.com/SASP for Strength and Speed Podcast. Once you get over to their website, you're going to have to take a Health IQ quiz, and that's going to see if you qualify for lower rates on your life insurance. Plus, you can get additional savings by submitting actual data, so things like race results, Strava, Runkeeper, or any other application that you use to actually track your fitness. 56% of Health IQ customers save between 4 and 33% on their life insurance. So if you're with another life insurance agency and you're not taking advantage of all the fitness work you're putting in on your spare time, then you need to switch companies right now. Car insurance companies give you lower rates for being a good driver. There's no reason that health insurance companies shouldn't give you a lower rate for being a healthier person by doing things like training, running, lifting weights, and participating in our favorite sport, OCR. You don't have to be an elite athlete to qualify. You just have to be the type of person who's putting in a little bit of time and effort to make yourself healthier. And if you're listening to this podcast, chances are that's you. So head on over to healthiq.com/SASP and see if you qualify for lower rates today. Cool, now that we heard a little bit about our sponsor, just want to give a shout out to our intro music, which I haven't given a shout out to in a while. One of my good friends growing up was Marc Capaldo. He led a band called Madison Ambush, and that's one of their songs in our intro. I don't remember what the actual name of the song is off the top of my head, but if you like the intro, you can head over to iTunes and buy some of his music. It's pretty good stuff. Joining me today, I have Christopher Balven. Christopher was a former D2 collegiate football player. He started racing OCR in 2011, but began racing competitively in 2014 with the Fugitive Run racing team. Fugitive Run is a race series in the middle of Missouri, Rolla, Missouri, which is now closed, but they did have a great course when it was still around. He's currently the captain of the Battlegrounds OCR team, so we've had several other athletes from that team on the podcast, including Leah Hensley and Jason Rulo, the owner/creator of Neptune Performance Products. The Battlegrounds race company is based out of Wright City, Missouri. He's been on the team since 2015. He's also a member of the Strength and Speed Development team, so that's how I know him real well. He's currently training with the Endurance Project, which is a training group run by Dennis Welch. He's a brand ambassador for Second Skin Gear, and he specializes in strength-based obstacles and short course races. So this year he won DRX Games, 2 wins there, which we're going to talk about later in this podcast, at the Dirt Runner course in Marseilles, Illinois, and he's also won the Colossal Crusher race So Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, Evan. Nice to be on. I think this is my first podcast, so I'm pretty excited about it.
Nice. Cool. So what we want to talk about in this episode is 3 things. So we want to talk about DRX Games because it's a very unique aspect or race style, which occurs at Dirt Runner. We want to talk about the Battlegrounds. So their last race is going to be May 19th, and Tough Mudder is currently in the process of essentially taking ownership of that venue. We'll get into that a little bit later. So it's essentially like the first quote-unquote buyout of a smaller company. And then we also want to talk about the Abominable Snow Race, which was my first race, my first OCR of 2018. I think it was your first too. Is that correct?
Yes, it was.
Cool. Yeah, on this podcast, we like to highlight some of the smaller companies. So the Abominable Snow Race, there was actually a lot of big names there. So we're going to get into that a little bit. So I guess let's start off with that. So the Abominable Snow Race held this past weekend, January 26th, I believe it was, at Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. So give me some of your thoughts on the Abominable Snow Race.
This is my second year doing it, actually. Same venue. I think they flipped the course around, but it was about a mile longer this year. I think the thing that I like most about it is you don't really see any other OCRs that have the snow aspect unless you get into maybe some of the endurance ones that are, like Iceland and whatnot. I think Spartan just got into that last year with Greek Peak, but this one was pretty unique in that aspect. And the cool thing about it is Midwest typically doesn't have very much going on in the winter, so they do really well. So it's a 5-mile course, which is to my liking. Anything that's under 7 miles, I'm pretty happy with usually. But it's got a mix of everything in it. This year we started out running on ice just at the beginning of the ski hills because it warmed up and then got cold again overnight. So if you had like your yak tracks or carbide tips or anything like that in your shoes, you were in a better shape there at the beginning.
Did you end up running with yak tracks, or did you use like
did.
a? Okay.
Yeah. So both years I used them.
So for those people who don't know, yak tracks essentially it's a rubber outsole you put over your shoe, and it's got kind of looks like a spiral spring going around the rubber, and that helps you grip on the ice. So if you're running in the Midwest or the northern part of the U.S. and you run a lot in snow, they are awesome. I bought a pair a couple years ago. I've barely used them, but they definitely came in handy for this race because I thought I needed them 100%.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad I had them on. But then once we got out of that, it got into some kind of access roads and stuff with the obstacles, spreading people out like you see at most OCRs. And then you got into some single-track trails. So it was a lot of little rolling hills, muddy turns from the weather kind of warming up a little bit and sinking in and that top layer of mud kind of unfreezing. So it was slick in that aspect. But going in and off those trails, you went from snow to ice to mud just constantly, I think, through the whole 5 or so miles. So it's probably overall an easier OCR whenever it comes to obstacle difficulty. You really don't have a lot of super challenging stuff, but there's enough technique to it to slow people down. They have the weavers is one that usually gives some people some trouble. They have a little bit of controversy around the monkey bars this year.
Yep.
They did have some monkey bars that was added in. That wasn't there last year.
They also had the traverse wall it was like traverse wall into a flat wall with ropes hanging down.
Right.
And
like
then back into yeah, but the middle section was like a flat wall with loops of rope, so it wasn't like tip of the spear, like Battle Fox tip of the spear. It was it just had loops, so that was kind of awkward.
Right. And then your typical carries. I mean, they had the carries in there, but being that it's at a ski resort there in Lake Geneva, you also had the steep climbs. So they weren't really long, but you had a lot of vertical change. I think I clocked it at like 800 plus feet of elevation gain, I think, over the 5 miles. So I'm not sure how close everybody was to that, but that's what I got.
I didn't check my data, but going in, I'm not the best on mountain courses because I feel like I'm a little too cautious running downhill because I'm worried about injuring myself for a future race. Yeah. But I will say this course, even though it is technically a mountain course, it did not feel like a mountain course, right? Like Lake Geneva's ski mountain is the smallest ski mountain I've ever seen.
I agree.
I'll just say that.
It was just enough to make you have to power hike on a couple of the hills, but it wasn't enough to make you feel like you were really on some type of a mountainous terrain.
100%.
So
yeah.
So overall, it's one that I like. I like how it still has kind of a small vibe to it. It's local feel, but it's also kind of grown up enough. I believe they said they have over 2,300 runners that were registered for it. So even though the race results, if you looked at the race results, it only shows 400. That's because for the smaller races now we're starting to go to where the elite get timed, and then if you want to pay for a timing chip, then you can get a timing chip to do that, or you can clock yourself. So it only shows a few, but they had over 2,000 runners there, so that's pretty good for I think it's a third year total doing the event.
Yeah, I was blown away with how great the event was. So, I mean, it's a small... I was expecting this tiny little rinky-dink race in the middle of Wisconsin in winter. And, I mean, there was some big names there. You know,
Yeah.
Jordan Buscemi, we've had on the podcast before, was there. And then Brock and Crocker was there, who's been on a couple of the other popular podcasts. So, like, serious field. And I think Bracken came in first, Jordan came in second, and John Penland
Correct.
came in third. So
we had Ferguson. I can't remember his first name.
I think Mike, right?
Mike Ferguson sounds right. I think he was there in fourth, and then even the hero you had the podium was pretty good. I mean, you got up there in second, right?
Yeah, correct.
And then
I believe Jason West is his first name. Was first. I was second, and Scott Warzecki, also from the Battlegrounds team, was in third. So even I went up there, you know, with the heroes heat. It was a military, law enforcement, veteran, EMS, firefighter type thing. I walked up there and I was like, oh, this will be an easy win, no problem. And I got up there and I was like, damn it, I'm gonna have to really put out some effort today. So it was it was fast.
Didn't make it easy. And then even on the women's side, I think it was pretty tough. You had Julie Harchis with I think she's with Endurance Project as well. She killed it like she usually does. She was high up there at US OCR Championship just this past year. I think she hit podium.
Yep, she got third. We had her on the podcast previously in the 3K. Yep.
Yeah. So from that, and then Kelly Williams there with the Battlegrounds. She ended up first in the Masters, women's Masters. So I mean, all the fields I think were pretty tough there.
Yeah, and one of the things as a competitive athlete was awesome was they paid out, and like all the categories paid out. So you know, I won again for this tiny, what I thought was going to be a tiny OCR. Great field. They're paying out cash. Not only did I get cash for my second place finish, but I got a bottle of vodka and I got a trophy, which is way more than I've gotten for some other pretty significant races. So I was ecstatic with that. I thought the race venue was great. I thought Bill Wolf, he's I believe the owner / race director, did a great job with the course. Definitely something I would look at putting on your schedule next year, especially because, like we talked about at the beginning of the episode, you know, there's not much going on in the Midwest, and I think it really drew in pretty much any OCR athlete within driving distance since nothing's going on in January.
Yeah, and to that point, they also, I mean, the hero heat for the first responders, EMS, military, it's pretty good discount for what you're getting. It's the same thing as what you're basically doing in an elite wave, but it's the same price as the open, which is kind of rare that you see now. And they also have the multi-lap option there too. So I know there's some people that are, you know, your World Toughest Mudder people and your endurance athletes can get out there and run multiple laps and compete for that there too. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing that one, but I couldn't tell if there was prizes or what the deal was, so I ended up just sticking with the hero heat. And I'm actually still in the off season, so I hadn't been doing any speed training, and I showed up there and put out a max effort 5.5 mile OCR, and like I'm embarrassed to admit like how sore I was the next couple days. It's like embarrassing.
Yeah.
I was like, and
I mean, I was feeling it myself. I had, most of since August, really, I've been out of training with I had some knee tendonitis that flared up on me at the toughest mudder in Chicago, the 8-hour event. So ever since that one, I've been struggling. I wanted to get through OCR World Championship and then really took some time off. So I only got about 3 or 4 weeks of running in prior to this race. So I was feeling it pretty bad myself. So I know where you're coming from there.
Yeah. Overall, like I said, great event. I was super happy with it. So definitely something I want to put on my schedule next year.
Yeah, I agree.
I
know there's a lot of people that jumped back on because they already opened up the registration. I think this past year they only gave about 3 months of registration, but they've already got it open for next year if anybody wants to get out there and hop on the cheap price, I think, right now.
Cool. So Ohio has a very strong local OCR scene, And I think the Wisconsin area is starting to develop their own strong local OCR scene. So they have Wisconsin/Chicago areas. So they have the Abominable Snow Race. They have Highlander, which I have not done. They have Frontline, which I have not done, but I believe you have done, right, with the weight vest. You do end up doing an OCR with the weight vest. Yeah,
that was the first one. Yeah, that was rough. A 15-pound weight vest. And that's for the men and women both had to wear the same weight.
Oh, that's awful. That's really rough for women.
Yes, it was.
People don't think 15 pounds is a lot, but when you're trying to hang from your hands, it is a lot.
And they were not easy obstacles. They had rigs and with the largest warp wall that I've seen in an event. I think the next largest was probably 2016 OCR World Championship. Had the big ramp wall, but this was bigger. They had a rope down it, but with that vest on, even running 15 feet up a warp wall and then climbing the last 15 vertical with a rope with a 15-pound weight vest was pretty tough. But they had the rig at the end that you had to complete with the vest. So anybody that already thinks rigs are tough, try that one out. So that Frontline was a good event.
Cool. Yeah, I know they have at least one event next year. Do you know if they're having more? I mean, 2018 wise.
I don't know for sure, but I've heard that sometime around September they were looking for another event time.
Gotcha. Cool.
So, but they have May 19th is the one they have on their calendar right now, but I believe September will be a second one.
Gotcha. So definitely an interesting thing there. Plus, they also have the permanent OCR facility, Dirt Runner, which you won the DRX Games for. So can you explain a little bit? We've talked about Dirt Runner on this podcast a couple times before, but can you explain the DRX Games to people? Because it has a unique aspect for an OCR.
This is probably my favorite event that I've ever entered in OCR, just out of the uniqueness of it and how it fits me specifically. So I guess the closest way to explain it would be it's like a decathlon almost for OCR skills. So, for example, this year they had 7 events at each of the 2 DRX games, and you compete in those events against the other people that are there, and based on how well you do, you get points for the ranking in that particular event, and you want the lowest score possible. So the numbers go up. The first place guy gets 0 points on their name, and then it just goes up the ranking. So the better you do, lower score. So they had spear throw technique, and it wasn't just like hit the one spear. It was a timed thing where you had 3 hay bales, and you had to stick all 3 and then run around a little barricade to a further distance one, and then stick the 4th one, and then you got points based on the number that you stuck. But anything that was beyond, I think it was 15 seconds, those didn't count. And then there was a large tire jump. So women had a little bit shorter tire, but even the women's, I think it was like 24 inches, somewhere around that. And the guys' tire jump was like an industrial, like in a dump truck type, whatever the heck it was. But it was like over 36 inches high, and then you had a minute for max reps, and you had to go up, stand up to an extension, come back down, jump again for max number of reps. Then they had a tire flip where you started on one end, the tire was around a concrete block, you had to flip it all the way down to the one side, flip it back all the way back until it goes back on the concrete block, then you had to pick up your concrete block and run it all the way down to the other side of the area, and then run it back, set it back in your tire and for your time completion. They had rope climb for a minute for the max number of bell rings. So you had to do that. They had what they call the dragon's nest, which is a tire drag on a rope. So it starts out with the rope taut, and I want to say it's about 25 to 30 feet of a rope, and it's a thin rope, so it's hard to grip. So there's an atlas stone inside of the tire. You have to run down from the start position, pick up the atlas stone, bring it back, and then pull the tire to you, grab the tire, drag it all the way back out to the rope is taut again, run back down, pick up your Atlas stone and bring it down, stick it back in the tire, and then sprint through the finish. So it's all these things kind of incorporate a lot of anaerobic, fast twitch muscle type stuff for you to do. So that's kind of where me being 195 pounds in comparison to most OCR athletes that are running around significantly lower than that, it puts me at a little bit of advantage. But then,
how tall are you? Just so people can get an idea.
5'11".
Okay. Yeah, you're 195 pounds. I mean, you're muscle, right? Like there's.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We're not like super bodybuilding lean, but you're lean. Yes. It's 195 pounds of muscle.
Right. And then they still have incorporate the true OCR piece into it. So you have the skills that are there, but then the last event that they do is a short sprint course. So this year the sprint course was 300 yards with, I believe it was 15 obstacles stacked in that 300 yards. And, they started out with that dragon's nest, the tire drag on the rope and the Atlas thing. So it starts you out with a high heart rate. You go through barbed wire crawl, a netted monkey bar, over a hill, down this like porcupine looking thing with telephone poles. It almost looks like human Plinko, like you're just weaving down through it.
That's a good description of it.
Right. And then over a little wall through mud, and then there's a pretty massive slip wall that actually is rubber coated that you have to go over and descend down a rope or climb the rope depending on which way he's running it. He's got a bucket carries around an area, and then these huge, like 120-pound Atlas stones that you have to pick up and carry. Got a weaver is in there, some crawling through tunnels with mucky, thick mud, and then a tip of the spear type traverse wall near the end of it. So there's a lot of variety of different types of obstacles on that sprint course. So it hits a little bit of everything, and you have to do well at all of those things if you want a chance to podium in it.
I think that's such a cool event. It reminds me of like OCR Strongman. So the separate events, and then you kind of get a ranking or a point system per event. And I love that. I love that our sport has things like 24-hour races, and then it has things like this and things like 1 mile races and 5 mile, and everything in between. Because I think, there's so many different aspects to our sport that it brings out a unique capability in everyone. And I like that there's so much variation for people to do well, regardless of kind of where your strength lies.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, you can look at it from, Battle Frog had a lot of the rigs and the upper body type stuff, and then you go over to people with Spartan where it's a lot of heavy carries and climbing. They usually incorporate a lot of the terrain into it. And then, some of your local stuff is flatter. Battlegrounds is a lot flatter with a little bit easier obstacles, so it's a faster race. So, yeah, I like how you can go to different races and get lots of different types of race. You can specialize in something or whatever, and this is just another style of that. So
with the other guys that showed up to the race, or the event, were they OCR athletes, or were some of them more strength guys, or what was the deal?
They were pretty much all OCR athletes. I mean, there's some local people from the Chicago area that would come in, and they have two different styles. So the DRX game is moderate weight and the stuff. They also have a DRX Brute, which is run at a different time. It's just another event that Dirt Runner does that is heavier. It's more close to the strongman competitions than either what DRX game is. So that DRX Brute is the one that I think I've seen more non-OCR guys at.
Yeah, the guy who won it last year is ginormous.
Yeah,
right. Like he is jacked and enormous.
Yes.
I don't know his name off the top of my head, but
I don't either. I was trying to remember it. But that one does not incorporate that short course piece of it. So the DRX games does. And we had Antonio Pusateri was there from the Wisconsin OCR team. And then some other local ones that do a lot of the Dirt Runner races were there. Brian Fisher's a teammate of mine on Endurance Project. So Primarily, you'll see OCR athletes at the games.
Gotcha. Cool. And I do not believe they've posted their schedule for 2018 yet.
Not for the games, but I believe it's the date he gave me was the weekend of May 26th or 27th, whatever that Saturday is.
Okay.
That's whenever the game should be. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can pencil that in on your calendar if you're listening. I know they have posted. I think they've posted their Midwest Mayhem date, which is basically their normal 10K OCR. And I think they may have posted DRX Dash maybe, which is like their really short course one. So
right.
And the other cool thing about them is, again, we've talked about this on the podcast before, but they have really cool medals. So like the DRX Brute has like a tiny Atlas stone as its medal, which is like, I just think it's awesome looking.
Yeah, the games has a skull. It's got that's a skull, and if you close your fist, it's about as big as most people's closed fists. It's a larger medal, and then the podium ones have like a lightning bolt across the face of the skull. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, so
and they actually gave for winning it last year. They gave me a Atlas stone as the trophy, so that was kind of unique.
Taki gave me an Atlas stone when I came there for OCR America, and when I moved, I think the movers just left it on the movers truck because I have no idea where it is now. And I've been looking around my house when I realized it was missing, and it's not easy to lose a 50-pound stone, right? So
right.
So yeah, they Dirt Runner typically does not give out cash prizes, but they do have some pretty cool podium awards. So I have a sword from winning Midwest Mayhem and a concrete dragon skull that is too heavy for my trophy self, so I have it sitting on it in a different area. But
yeah, I've seen lightning bolts from the dash and spears for point leaders and like tridents, and there's a lot of interesting ones. And they're full size. They're not just talking like a little replica thing. Like they cut it out of steel and sharpened them.
Yeah, I'm so glad that it was driving distance for me because I don't know how I would have gotten the sword back to my house if I had to fly.
So. Yeah, I don't think that would have happened. You had to ship it back.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, definitely some cool events there if you are, if you want to test out a different aspect of your OCR skill, or if you think you're good enough to get on the podium, definitely some cool awards, although no cash. And, just for participation, lots of cool individual medals. So check out Dirt Runner. There's a link on the Strength and Speed page under the race section. I believe it's under discounts, so you can check them out. And since we're talking about, Midwest OCR for the majority of this episode, let's talk about the Battlegrounds. So the big news earlier this year was Tough Mudder is going to start using the Battlegrounds race venue, which is co-located on a winery in Wright City, Missouri, so about 30 minutes west or so of St. Louis. And the kind of the fallout from that, or the second and third order effects, is the Battlegrounds, which we know and love for the past couple of years, is going to have their last race on May 19th of this year. So, whatever I missed, can you just kind of expound on that and maybe give us a little more background information?
Yeah, I give you as much as I think I'm able to give you.
Okay.
So basically, they signed an agreement with them to use the property. So it's not that the Battlegrounds brand was purchased by Tough Mudder, but because of the way that the agreement is put together, they have exclusive rights for obstacle course racing at the venue. So the Battlegrounds can't hold their event during that 5-year time frame. So yeah, I think it's really cool for Tough Mudder, and the fact that the property, it hasn't even 50% of it has maybe been used. So even for the people that have gotten used to the Battlegrounds and enjoyed that and love that, there's been quite 3 or 4 events now that we've been over 2,300 to 3,000 runners there. So there's a lot of people that know that venue. If you are looking at Tough Mudder, that's probably going to be a lot of new stuff in comparison to it. In fact, I don't even know how much they're going to touch the obstacles that are were actually currently on the property since it was a permanent build. I mean, just from my experience of being at Tough Mudders, the obstacles tend to get backed up once you get into the later part of the day. So I can't imagine what that would be like on the Battlegrounds obstacles unless they made some adjustments to it. So
I feel like the battle, for those who've never been to the Battlegrounds in Midwest, they have an obstacle called the Gauntlet, and it's a 6-lane choose your own adventure obstacle, and each of the lanes is different. You know, some of them have a vertical fence, some of them have a horizontal fence, some of them have a balance beam, some of them have monkey bars, some have, you know, rings. What else am I missing?
Grips,
rock climbing grips,
tires suspended that you have to go from rope to rope.
Yeah, so it's all sorts of different things, and each lane maybe has 3 or 4 different sections of different types of obstacles that you can kind of go through. And It is such a cool, unique obstacle. It would be a shame if that never gets touched again. And I know Tough Mudder puts out such large numbers, it might be difficult throughput, but I don't know. It'd be a shame if that never gets used.
It's a little bit heartbreaking from being on the team for a while and kind of representing that company. It's where, I mean, you start to get an identity by being part of the Battle Corps and always having that logo on you. So, you know, that home course feel, not having that anymore is going to be tough, especially since I grew up 15 minutes. My parents' house is 15 minutes from the venue. So, I mean, I've driven past that property since I was 1 year old. So, it's a little bittersweet for me just from that aspect. I was hoping that, you know, my daughter is almost 2 years old now. In fact, the only race that I missed at the Battlegrounds, since they started operating 5 years ago, was my wife went into labor the day of the race in spring 2016. So I missed that spring race for her to come along. So I was hoping she would get out there and play on a little bit or see me race on her stuff whenever she finally was able to remember it. But hey, you know, business is business. I've seen a lot of changes now, so this is a unique one, I guess, with OCR. Typically, that you would see one of these big companies come in and rent out the venue, and the agreement would still be for the other ones to run their stuff. So, I mean, even Dirt Runner is an example of that. You had Spartan was using the property, and Dirt Runner was still operating outside of that time frame.
And then Battlefrog was using that property. So if you went to Battlefrog Chicago, that's where it was.
Right. So this is, at least to my knowledge, this is the first time that the agreement has shut down the operation of the permanent facilities that are there.
Yeah. No, I'm not tracking. You know, it may have happened in the past at some point, but I'm not tracking any other ones in the last couple of years. And I think, you know, to me, this is kind of like Walmart coming in and putting like the little guy out of business. So I think it's, you know, we always say, oh, well, there's plenty of room for everyone. There's plenty of weekends in the year and plenty of race venues and locations. And I'm a big fan of Tough Mudder and a lot of things they do. You know, the Toughest Mudder Series, World's Toughest Mudder. Those are my A races for the year, right? And I'm not even that attached to the Battlegrounds. I've run it twice, I want to say, and I agree. I think that's kind of heartbreaking. It's like the little guy, and even their race wasn't little. I mean, you had a couple thousand people at it at every race, but it's a little heartbreaking.
Yeah, I mean, it caught us off guard a little bit because we were hearing a lot of rumors with one of the local ski resorts here, Hidden Valley Ski Resort, which is about 20-30 minutes away from where the Battlegrounds property is, had been in negotiation with Tough Mudder, and they were working on signing an agreement with them. And because they wanted to build a zip line on the property with the ski resort, this stuff got held up. And because that got held up, it opened the door for the negotiations to start with the Battleground. So we were a little caught off guard because we thought it was going to go there or end up back in Sedalia, Missouri, is where it's been the last 2 years. And I know there was some location in Columbia that was being negotiated. So it wasn't until it was pretty much agreed upon that, you know, the race team was notified by the owner. So, yeah.
What I would love to see, and I think it's completely far-fetched and not realistic, it won't happen, but have it be like almost co-branded like CTG XTC was. So if it was like Tough Mudders, Tough Mudders the Battlegrounds, right? So it still incorporated a lot of the Battlegrounds obstacles, but maybe expanded the number of lanes. And then on top of that, you had the normal Tough Mudder obstacles. So you still get that Tough Mudder feel, but it does have like a unique flavor that would allow, it still allow people to experience Tough Mudder, but maybe like the Tough Mudder Legionnaires who are going to every single event in the U.S. or a lot of the events in the U.S., it still gives them the unique flair and different obstacles that they would be able to try and experience. That would be like, my ideal world. I just, I think they've got their brand and they know their formula for success. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, and I think that would be pretty cool too. I think the only downside to it is something like the gauntlet obstacle that we have at the Battlegrounds. You'd run into like the elite timed competition that Tough Mudder has now, where that not having standardized lanes could potentially be a problem whenever you're getting into those types of podium positions. So I don't know, maybe they could keep some of that stuff and incorporate it into the open waves once later in the day and just have the elite kind of go around it. But I think that would be really cool to see that unique aspect at a Tough Mudder that isn't all the other ones. Because you see typically you see the same obstacles at most of these things. Spartan has the same stuff, and they switch them around. Tough Mudder has the same stuff, and they just switch them around between venues. So to go to one and have something completely different that's unique to that location, especially whenever you've got that 5-year agreement, that you could build something, leave it there, and build upon it or update it or whatever. Yeah, I mean, that would be cool to see.
So if anyone from Tough Mudder HQ is listening to this, write that down. Go ahead and make that happen so we can have a little bit of Battleground still.
Please.
And with the gauntlet, I mean, they still used it for the elite wave of the Battlegrounds. You just picked your own lane. Yep. And it was, if you were smart, you would go to the obstacle ahead of time because it's like right by the parking area and take a look at it and figure out what lane you wanted to use. And, I would typically pick a primary lane and an alternate just in case I was in a head-to-head battle with someone and, we both hit the obstacle around the same time. But, it was a good strategy. It was basically like choose your own adventure, and some of the lanes are slower but a little more safe, as in you're not going to fall in the water, and some of the lanes were a little bit faster and a little bit harder, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of people that don't scout it out in advance go to the one lane that's almost all balance, so there's like some hanging dummy bags or something in the way, so as long as you can go from dummy bag to dummy bag and just kind of go across the log. But the faster ones are the ones that if you can do the monkey bars, and there's like these hoses, green rubber hoses that are hanging down that are like monkey bars. If you can do those, if you have that technique, those are actually faster lanes. So, yeah, that scouting in advance can pay dividends there at the end of the race. And I've passed almost every single race. I pass people in that gauntlet area, so it makes a difference.
Cool. So give us a plug and a discount code for the Battlegrounds, because I know you have one.
Yeah, so the Battlegrounds, May 19th is the event. You got 5K or 5-mile option at the event, and if you want to get signed up, the price is actually going to be going up here. I don't know if this will be out, but February 2nd, midnight is the next price increase. But
it will not be out by then.
All right.
That's like 24 hours from now.
So if you want to get signed up with a 15% off discount code is CHRIS15, that's just CHRIS 15, then I get 15% off, and that's any wave that you want. So hopefully we'll see you guys out there.
Awesome. And you mentioned it earlier, so you have a 2-year-old daughter, right?
Yeah, she'll be 2 in May.
Gotcha. Before I get to that, though, I want to give a quick shout-out to Miles Keller, who just had his son, I think it was like a week or two ago. Evan Keller, clearly a great name. The kid's clearly going to do great stuff. So congratulations to Miles, who we've had on this podcast, I think 3 times before. Big shout-out to him. But just wanted to talk to you about, what's it like training with a 2-year-old, and kind of how do you make that work?
Well, you have to change the times you're going to train. So my schedule, I usually get up at like 4:30 a.m., 5 o'clock, to get out and get to the gym or go for a run or whatever it is, because by the time I get off work, it's 5:30, 6 o'clock, and get home. It gives me like 2 hours to see her. So that's my de-stress period, is walking through the door and have a little girl go running up to you and give you a hug. So
that's the
I
best.
do all my
It's the absolute best. I am not a kids person, but I love my daughter more than anything.
Completely agree. Yeah, I mean, I'll sit places and see kids running around and just get completely annoyed. But
yep, same here.
It's just, it's different. So I don't train at night very much anymore. Maybe 2 or 3 times a month I'll end up going for a night workout just because of the way things play out. But almost everything's in the morning now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it on the head. People make time for what's important to them. So if fitness is a priority in life, you adjust your schedule accordingly. Whether that means getting up at 4 a.m. to train, or I know some athletes, when their children go to bed, they go back out for like a second session, or they train at night, something like that. So
yeah, try to dump the long workouts into the weekends. So
yeah,
and even then, I'm still getting up early, just so that I can try to hit some of it before she wakes up.
Right on. Cool. So before we take off, anything else you want to cover? Any shout-outs you want to give, stuff like that?
No, not that I can. I guess check out the Second Skin gear. I know the last season, the Second Skin gear is all 50% off right now in Dick's Sporting Goods, and probably won't be too much longer before they release the new spring and summer stuff. So keep an eye out for that. I know they've been working with a lot of the brand ambassadors for updates and things for OCR, so there should be some good changes for having some solid clothes for OCR racing. I
love that. So I had never heard of Second Skin. I don't know how old they are, but I'd never heard of them before last year. And I feel like they went all in on OCR. Like they showed up and were like, boom, OCR everything. And
yeah, they just started last year. In fact, it was supposed to launch in March, and it kept getting pushed back until late April. I think it finally launched. But so we were brought on as brand ambassadors a couple months prior to it actually going live, and they brought like 200 to 300 brand ambassadors on right at the beginning, and they were pretty much all OCR or CrossFit. So they hit it pretty hard, pretty early, just from the social media aspect.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think it shows that our sport is growing, it's gaining recognition, and people see value in the athletes and in the community. So with them, whether they're, giving out product or just discounts or, paid sponsorships, whatever level they're investing in the sport, I think that's great for everyone. So what are some of their favorite products that they make?
I'm probably going to be racing in the 2-in-1 shorts once it warms up, because I've always had different compression shorts or whatnot, but I wore them a couple times this fall, and I love those things. They're comfortable, they drain well, they're lightweight in comparison to having a couple compression layer or something on it. So I'm usually just wearing compression shorts, but those are pretty good.
So it's compression short with like a loose short over it. Is that correct?
Correct. I think it's a 7-inch seam short, but has the compression shorts built in underneath. So I really like those, and then I like the overlayers, the training pants. There's like a jogger type training pants, and then there's a thinner material training pants, and then their long sleeve like cold gear that they have is really good as well. And it's got thumb holes in it to keep the sleeves down. You can cover up your hands a little bit, and I actually wore that as the overlayer. I had the Neptune thermoregulation on there, Abominable Snow Race, as my base layer to keep me warm, and then had the cold gear long sleeve Second Skin over top of that, and no issues whatsoever from a 30s degree race. Worked really well.
Cool. Yeah, I have a pair of the 2-in-1 shorts that I use for the gym. I go with regular spandex for races because I like people seeing the outline of my junk because it makes them uncomfortable. And yeah. I'm hoping I can pass them in that couple seconds of awkwardness. But
hashtag front bump.
Awesome. All right, well, we're going to get going. Any final shout-outs besides that one?
If you're in St. Louis, check out Core Complex for your obstacle course training. They just added a new kids training area and moved a lot of the stuff out that was in there, so there's a ton more space, a lot more obstacles, and the Core Complex actually just started an 8-person OCR team, so they're putting a lot of OCR apparatuses and obstacles into the training facility. So that's a good place to check if you're in the area.
Cool. And I'm going to give a quick shout out to, I got a couple articles coming out on Mud Run Guide. 2 of them are about frog skins. So it is neoprene gear that people have been wearing for Toughest Mudder and World's Toughest Mudder, but it's like fleece lined. So it's kind of thin neoprene. I think it's a great opportunity as an intermediary step between like I'm wearing just compression clothing to now I'm wearing a full wetsuit. So I'm going to bring my frog skins top and bottom and gloves and hood to all of my toughest events this year to use in case it is too cold for shirtless, which is how I usually run, but too warm for a wetsuit. So check out those reviews on Mud Run Guide. Also, if you head over to the Conquer the Gauntlet Pro Team Facebook page and click on the banner, there are discount codes for all our sponsors. So things like Juice Performer, if you're ordering off Amazon, you can get 15% off. We have coupon codes for Mud Gear. Let's see what else. Yeah, there's a couple on there. Rec Bag, we got one for Rec Bag. So head over to the Conquer the Gauntlet Pro Team Facebook page, click on the banner, get yourself some discounts, get yourself some OCR gear, and get ready to crush 2018. All right, Chris, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
And I will see you, I don't know, sometime in the next couple months.
All right, you gonna be at Battlegrounds?
Yeah, of course. Final race. Gotta go in.
If nothing else, I'll see you there.
All right. I'll catch you later.